This edition of Tru Heel Heat is brought to you by Warrior Wrestling Stadium Series, kicking off on Saturday, September 12th. It will be on the 19th and the 26th. 3 huge shows inside a huge stadium in Chicago Heights. On the 12th, it is headlined by a very anticipated match as Tessa Blanchard defends the Warrior Wrestling Women's Championship against Kylie Ray. Without further ado, this is Tru Heel Heat. Hello. It is me, your Tru Heel Phenom SP3. We are back with our latest podcast, Tru Heel Heat 91. The road to Tru Heel Heat 100 continues. On this edition of Tru Heel Heat, we will be discussing all of the fallout from AEW All Out, WWE's ban on third-party platforms, which will be an interesting conversation for sure. We will be reviewing NXT Super Tuesday II, as well as the newsworthy post All Out AEW Dynamite, and previewing the huge event this Saturday in Chicago Heights, night 1 of Warrior Wrestling Stadium Series. This is a special Warrior Wrestling presents Tru Heel Heat 91. Of course, I am back as usual with the princess of all the Tru Heels, Miss Krssi Luv.
Hello, all my Tru Heels.
Yes, Krssi, looking beautiful as usual. Unfortunately, our resident Tru Heel alcoholic, Top Guy JJ, can't be with us for this edition. We want to shout him out. Send our prayers to him. We hope that he is in good graces in London, England, on vacation, and he is having a peaceful day. And this Tru Heel Heat is dedicated to him as well, for sure.
Yes.
But filling in those shoes for Top Guy JJ is our Chicago representative, the host of Dark Power, our correspondent for AEW Dark and Impact Wrestling, the one, the only StatKing, John Paul Martin.
Welcome back.
Glad to be back, guys. I couldn't break my streak of always having the longest episode every time I'm on. So I decided to come on back-to-back episodes and just see what we can do this time around.
Yay!
Yeah, this is your streak. You've been on like four episodes, I think all together, and this is back-to-back. Like, this is impressive.
Yeah.
But he is not the only Chicagoan that we have on this edition of Tru Heel Heat. We have a very, very special guest. We've had all types of people the last couple of weeks, from wrestling journalists to promoters to podcast host, but this time we have one of our favorite promoters in the wrestling world. He is the promoter for Warrior Wrestling, so we have a special correspondent for our Warrior Wrestling Stadium Series presents Tru Heel Heat 91, and he is also the principal of Marian Catholic High School. I hope I got that right. Principal Steve Tortorello.
Yay!
Hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's an honor to be here and talk wrestling with other people who love it.
Well, of course, as usual with our special guest, Steve, please tell the people a little bit about yourself and how you became, I'm pretty sure, we know how you became a principal. You work hard in that field, but tell us a little bit how you became the promoter for Warrior Wrestling.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to give you guys the Cliff Notes version of this because I could do a whole hour through my fandom as well. So as a little kid growing up in the 80s, I was a Hulkamaniac, and like everybody else, got out of wrestling in the 90s, fell back in love with it during the Attitude Era, and from then on, I was hooked. So starting in the early 2000s, I was going to everything I could, indie wrestling, you name it. I went to college. I actually wrote my honors thesis on the history of pro wrestling from World War II to the present. And then I lived in California for a few years where I trained to be a wrestler. Never actually had a match, but I trained and went to PWG and other local indies. When I came back home, I started going to indies in the Midwest. And a few years ago, I just got the itch and felt like I need to do this. I've always had some type of creative outlet. I've run improv and sketch comedy groups and done other things in the past. And I felt like I needed an outlet. and I gathered my best friend in the world, Eric, who's my right-hand man in Warrior, and he was the one who actually had the idea, why don't you do it with the school? You're not really looking to make money out of this on your own. You really just want to do this because you love it. Why don't you pair it with the school, give anything you make to the school, and that way the school has the gym, the school has the facilities, the school has all those things. And so Warrior Wrestling was born in the winter of 17-18. We ran our first show in spring of May 2018, and we have not looked back. And now we are outdoors for COVID, and lo and behold, being a high school is a huge advantage because we own our own outdoor stadium. So now we are an outdoor organization for the fall. We had one show in August. We've got 3 more coming up, and we're just looking forward to sharing live wrestling with the Midwest again.
Nice.
You were one of the first major shows to come back into the independent scene in Chicago, Illinois. I know our good friend here, StatKing, he was there live to witness the Friday Night Lights event, which was amazing on August 7th. And I got to give it up for you because you've even been quoted as Tony Khan getting inspiration from you guys on how to bring fans back to professional wrestling.
Wow.
So you deserve a lot of credit, sir.
Well, thank you very much. We just did it as safely as we possibly could, and we worried about everything that we did leading up to it. And, we were not going to do it if we couldn't do it well. And luckily, and it all depends on the fans, too, because we can do the safest show you've ever seen. But if the fans don't comply and do what they need to do, then it would be for nothing. And luckily, we had great people that showed up, and everybody was willing to do their part. And it worked so well that we're doing it again.
Love to see it. So we will for sure, towards the end of this episode, we're going to give you a full preview for night 1 of the Stadium Series. It's going to be 3 back-to-back Saturday nights in Chicago Heights. This is huge events, huge card, and the night 1 is just the tip of the iceberg, but we're definitely going to talk about that in full review later. But first of all, we start off every Tru Heel Heat with our Tru Heel roll call. This is for you, the fans of Tru Heel Heat, our supporters on social media, as well as right here on our YouTube channel. Our Tru Heel Trinity, our top 3 conversation starters on our Facebook group page, is on this week. For number 3, we have Charles Kirkhoff. Coming in at number 2 is our New Japan aficionado, James Wims. And coming in at number 1, it is Goldberg Streak, once again, the Negro Buck, Nick Jackson.
Woo-hoo, Nick!
Always.
Always. Our Tru Heels that we got to shout out: Argenino Beansmo, Eva Martinez, Des Cook, Jose Antonio Roman, and a Twitter follower, a new couple of Twitter followers that we got on the Twitter machine, Wooster182 on Twitter. We got to shout him out as well. Our YouTube subscriber highlight, Nick, is back again. He's in the comment section this time, and he commented on Tru Heel Heat 90. Glad to see StatKing and JJ back, and I'm right here with you, top guy. RIP to Chadwick Boseman, a real life superhero. Boseman, real life superhero, will be so missed. So shout out to Nick for that comment. Our kayfabe tactics, our king of the comments section for True Rewind episode 19. He said, "I'm already getting wrecked. LOL. This is such a fun show to listen to. Keep up the good work." In comes the money commented on our AEW All Out roundtable. We want to give it up to everyone who watched that roundtable, one of our most successful ones, and a lot of comments from that video. He said, I stayed up for this," quoting Marcus Cash. "You guys are funny. I didn't watch, but now I kind of want to, just so I can laugh with you guys. Great job." Stephen Day also commented on the All Out roundtable. "I'd say Jungle Boy as a name is fine. Still using Kid for years. Never hurt the Dynamite Kid." And that was also quoting Marcus Cash. Marcus Cash has very polarizing takes, if you haven't noticed. And Spilled Whiskey says All Out was an all out botch fest. So that is a good transition as we talk about what we missed, which was AEW All Out. And the reason probably for that comment has to do with one of the top things that happened on the show. Very, very scary moment in the Broken Rules match as Sammy Guevara spears Matt Hardy off of a forklift down onto 2 tables with Matt's head striking the concrete. Then AEW ends the match only to restart it to one of the most controversial decisions in AEW history. A lot of fallout from there, whether Matt was had had a concussion. You know, some people were just scared for Matt's life in general, and they really took a lot of air out of that show. I know Rebby Hardy went on a social media outburst, being the wife and having 3 kids at home, and seeing the father of her kids, you know, have such a bad fall like that. He was unconscious on the floor for at least 1 minute or two. A very scary moment at All Out. But what were your guys' thoughts on this? We'll start with you, Steve.
You know, I think you always have to put people's safety first, and AEW made the right call and then the wrong call. They stopped the match, and then they resumed the match. And I'm sure while the match was stopped, which we didn't see, people were saying, no, we're going to push through, we can do it, let's go to the finish. They made the right call to stop the match. They should have stuck with the right call that they made. Restarting it was then a mistake.
I could totally agree with you there. How about you, Miss Krssi Luv?
I totally agree. You did the right thing, just like Steve said. All you had to do was stop it. Everyone would have been fine with it. Like, his safety is more important than continuing a match and entertaining us. Like, if he can't entertain us, then what's the point of him? His safety and is what's important. And like his wife did, I would have totally did the same thing. Go on a rant because he's a husband, he's a dad, he's someone else outside of this, and they need him. So for you to continue this, it's very careless and disappointing for them to do that, because you stopped it, and we know why you stopped it. There was no need for you to continue it. Even if they said it was okay, he should have just went to the hospital and got checked out.
Absolutely, which he did after the show, but I can totally agree. They could have just stopped it right there. None of the fans would have been upset. How about you, StatKing?
I can understand why they may have wanted him, why they may have let it continue, because Matt's a performer, and he's been doing this for so long, he wants to be out there. And I can understand from a behind-the-scenes perspective what the stipulation was. So if you call the match because Matt's injured, that might have storyline ramifications. But they can easily, this is wrestling, it's creative writing in essence, and there are ways to write your way out of the situation that they would have been in. Just have Matt say, you know, a referee's decision doesn't mean I lost. It means the decision is taken out of my hands, so I should not have to leave AEW. And then you can continue with that, and you can even have Sammy do some kind of storyline or add something to his character about he hurts people or he injures people. You know, do something like that just to give him more of an edge, and then revisit it down the road when Matt's able to return. So I can I don't think they needed to restart the match, but I can understand why in the heat of the moment they may have made a decision and caved to the decision that they made.
Yeah, it was very, very scary to watch, because it was very visible that he was out on his feet and he was stumbling. So it just, you never want to see any wrestler, regardless of how you feel about them, you never want to see them in that state. So this was a very controversial, criticized decision. I went off on a whole rant on it on our roundtable, and I said that this was the worst and the lowest point or lowest light that I've seen on AEW since its inception last year. This was a very bad decision, and it's something that they need to learn from. But it wasn't all the bad with all the ugly with AEW All Out. It was some good, as we saw MJF have a great performance, a breakout performance in the main event against Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley getting the victory as the champ uses the banned paradigm shift. What was your thoughts on you called him Ted DiBiase Jr., Miss Krssi Luv? What was your thoughts on MJF's performance in this main event?
Phenomenal. We won't talk about AEW Dynamite, but I of course didn't disappoint at all. Like, he was amazing. Like, I knew he wasn't going to disappoint. I knew he was going to just, like, be a star and break out and be great. So, very happy.
I love the bloodshed. This was a very old school type of world title match. What was your thoughts on the AEW world title match, Steve?
You know, I think you nailed it right there when you said old school. This was a fight, and it was a fight between two really great characters. Moxley is kind of like the pit bull dog you let off a leash, and that's who Moxley is, and he had to behave and not use his move. And MJF is just this conniving villain, And not only is he a great character, he's a great wrestler. I thought that, to me, I think there were 3 matches that absolutely stole the show, and that was one of them. I thought it was a great main event, and it showed any doubters that MJF is main event material.
Totally agree with you there. And I love about Jon Moxley, what makes him a great babyface is the fact that he tells you what's going to happen in the match before it happens. Like he said that, yes, MJF might be better than him in the ring, but he's going to take him to the deep waters, and all MJF is going to do is run away. Even though MJF didn't really run away, he fought, and he showed a lot in fighting. So I do agree with you. He did show, without a shadow of doubt, he was a main eventer. John, what was your thoughts?
I enjoyed it immensely. I thought that match kind of highlights what happens when you have people who solidly know their characters and know what they're doing in the ring. Because in that situation, every move, every step you take, every breath you, all that fun stuff, everything means more. It means a little bit more. And then as certain things happen, you see the realization of what the setup was earlier in the match, or how they were putting this together and how they were building it. And I mean, I don't know if they planned out this match or planned out certain spots, but if they didn't, that just makes it even more
better.
Amazing, because they were able to call this on the fly, and they know their characters so well to say, somebody's whispering in your ear like, we got to do this. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let's do that. And that's just, it was a really good main event. So, yeah.
One match that was a little bit more intricate, but I would say was just as great, was the AEW World Tag Team Titles match, as FTR defeated Kenny Omega and Hangman Page to become the new champions. This was a long match, so this was a polarizing view. Some people thought it was too long, but honestly, I loved this match. This was a lot of great tag team wrestling involved. StatKing, we'll start with you. What was your thoughts on FTR becoming the new AEW World Tag Team Champions?
It was a result that we kind of knew was going to happen. But that didn't take anything away from it happening and how it happened. Regarding the match length, I will say that I think that, and that this is something that affects the entire pay-per-view from more than just a standpoint of whether or not AEW made a right decision with the Matt Hardy, Sammy Guevara situation. But if you look at the match times, that match ended up being roughly 9 minutes. If you add in how long between when they stopped the match and when they restarted it, which was probably another few minutes, the total segment was probably maybe 11 to 12 minutes. That time that it was supposed to actually have then got added to all of those other matches. So I think if the Sammy and Matt match had happened as it should have, the tag matches and all those others would have been a little bit tighter. But that being said, FTR and Hangman and Kenny Omega put on a show, and can't say enough about that match, and the performers within.
Krssi Luv, what was your thoughts?
I think John said it all very well. I didn't count it down or put in all of the time framing, but we already knew that FTR was going to perform and win as they should. It was time for Omega and Hangman to have their little beef to start. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people were upset that they were still even in the tag team division to begin with. So I thought the match was great. A little tad long, but still good and very good though.
So what was your thoughts, Steve, on the fallout from this match as well as the match? What was your thoughts on Hangman Page getting left hanging by Kenny Omega?
I liked the twist. I think we've been suspecting for 6 months that this team would implode when Hangman finally turns on the Young Bucks and Kenny and leaves the Elite. And 2 weeks ago, they very much implied that was coming when he cost the Young Bucks the gauntlet match. And then so you think this is the way we're going, right? We're going towards a heel Hangman and a babyface Elite. And then all of a sudden, when that match is over, Kenny's the jerk. Kenny walks out of camp. The next episode of Dynamite, Hangman wants to get back together and take another shot at it, and
we're like, nope, yep.
So all of a sudden, everything just got reset. We don't know when we think we know what the game is, and we're watching checkers. The Elite are playing chess. Yeah. So this story is longer and deeper than we know, and I'm excited for that. Surprise me. Take me a place I'm not sure I'm going.
Yes, I love how this story just keeps developing
Yep.
and it keeps going on different turns that we don't expect. Also, we saw a very good title match as the AEW Women's Championship was on the line with Shida defeating the NWA World Women's Champion Thunder Rosa. I thought that was one of the better matches on the show. We also had the Young Bucks showing a more heelish persona against Jurassic Express. We had Lance Archer winning the Casino Battle Royal, which was full of a lot of botches and a lot of rough spots, including Matt Sydal making his debut in spectacular fashion, to say the least, and Darby Allin getting a thumbtack body bag spot on the stage. And also, we kicked off the show with Big Swole defeating Dr. Goat Baker in the tooth and nail match, which was added to the show after the fans made an outrage about it being on the buy-in. Tony Khan made the decision to put this match on the show. Any thoughts on the other matches on the show and what stood out outside of those major matches that we already spoke of? Steve?
I would say the same thing I said about the Matt Hardy call earlier. Tony Khan made an initial correct call and then got convinced out of his correct call. The Britt Baker Big Swole match, as much as I love both of them, we've worked with both of them at Warrior Wrestling, that was not the way to start a pay-per-view. I don't think for a company that prides itself on building this party wrestling atmosphere, cinematic matches I don't think really fit. Now, the Stadium Stampede was a little bit different. They did that whole Double or Nothing pay-per-view and then threw to the Stadium Stampede as the ending. I don't think you start off your show with a cinematic match not in the arena. The fans in Daly's Place had to watch it on the screen. I think Tony Khan's gut call was correct at first. It was a pre-show segment. Not a knock to the people who were in it, but that style of segment should not have kicked off the main show. Because for me, the show didn't really start until the Young Bucks faced Jurassic Express. Then I felt like we were in an AEW pay-per-view. So that's my thought on the Britt Baker Big Swole match. I thought Bucks versus Jurassic Express was fantastic. I also thought Thunder Rosa versus Shida was fantastic. And obviously I'm biased. Thunder Rosa is going to be here with us in 2 days. But there's a reason she was with them. There's a reason she'll be with us because she's amazing. And she should be everywhere. So I thought the Bucks and Thunder Rosa Shida were the other two highlights for me as the top 3 matches on the card.
I agree with you for sure. And yeah, just because of how great that Bucks versus Jurassic Express match, that would have been the perfect opener for the show. And I think the show would have, even with the, what happened with Matt Hardy, the rough spots in the Casino Battle Royal, the show would have flowed a little bit better with that kicking off the show. StatKing, any highlights that you want to point out?
I'm a huge fan of Krssi and I'm a huge fan of Thunder Rosa, so that match was incredible to me. One thing I will say about that match is that my girlfriend, who's a huge fan of both, we got to see Thunder Rosa versus Jordynne Grace live at Freelance, and for her, that's her match of the night, just to be able to see 2 incredible women just tearing the house down and telling an amazing story within the match. For her, that was her match of the night. And I will say, I wonder how, with the tooth and nail match, if what they had done was instead say start with Bucks and Jurassic Express, then start the tooth and nail, and then kind of cut back to the ring and leave us wondering what was going on, and then after matches cut back to that dentist's office and say, hey, wow, we're getting a quick update. Let's jump back over, and then they pop back in for a few moments and come back, and then split it up that way. Maybe that would have worked a little bit better if they're going to include it on the main card. But I think, like Steve's saying, he kind of had the right decision and then bailed out of it. And when he bailed out of it, he didn't try to be more creative than he felt he needed to. Just, fans want it on the main card, let's just give it to them on the main card. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. It probably would have worked out a little bit better if they would have done it that way. And I do agree with you. Shida and Rosa, they definitely delivered. I gave them my MVPs for the entire All Out because they were put in a rough position coming after the whole Matt Hardy incident. Yeah. So I think if they're given another opportunity, the match is going to be even better than what we saw at All Out. Krssi Luv.
Shout out to the women. It's unfortunate that Britt and Swole had to open the show that way. It was not one of my likings and I was looking forward to that, but I was very disappointed for that particular one. So the other women's match definitely exceeded, and then we needed more women's wrestling a little bit to be put on a pedestal in AEW. So for that match to happen, I thought was very, very good. Show was solid, but that was one of I agree with you. That's definitely an MVP for me. The Bucks, of course, the Bucks. They are who they are. MJF, I was like, so other than that, but just like one thing that Steve said, a lot of people are like going back and forth with the whole thing of what AEW is giving us right now. They're not trying to be so comedic wrestling. They want to see them more serious right now. So a lot of people are definitely saying that, and I guess we have to just wait and see. They just want them to be more like, give us the wrestling. We don't need you to just do the whole comedic stuff. Like, give us the great storylines, which you guys have been doing so far, and just keep going into that same motion, and we'll get where we need to get. So other than that, the pay-per-view was good, solid. I think the women's match made it one of my favorites. So.
Yeah, I would say the women's match and the world title match definitely gave it a more positive grade than I would have gave it towards like the middle of the show. Like I said, because of the stellar level of pay-per-views that we've gotten from AEW, I said it on our roundtable. This, in my opinion, was the weakest AEW pay-per-view, which is not saying anything. Like the rest of the pay-per-views have been great, amazing, and stellar. This was good, pretty good.
Right. It wasn't great, but it was still good.
Yeah. So I would say this was the weakest, but definitely a good effort from the roster for sure. Also, what we missed was SmackDown, one of the best shows since SmackDown has moved over to Fox, and it was highlighted by Jey Uso, of all people, winning a fatal 4-way to become the #1 contender to the Universal title at Clash of Champions. We also saw Roman and Heyman's first promo as an alliance together. Big E was attacked by Sheamus in the parking lot, getting the white nose on a windshield, and of course the shocking betrayal of Sasha Banks as Bayley brutalized her best friend in one of the better turns that we've seen in quite some time. I'll get your thoughts, Steve. What was your thoughts on SmackDown this week with Jey Uso becoming the #1 contender for Roman Reigns' Universal title and Roman's promo with Paul Heyman?
Well, so I did not watch it live. I only saw it in clips afterwards, but I do have a few thoughts. One is that we've seen that Paul Heyman for years has loved Roman Reigns. And every time Heyman has worked with Reigns as Lesnar's manager, Heyman is the one who always introduces into the storyline Reigns' lineage. Heyman sees the idea of him as a descendant of the Samoan royalty wrestling families as something that WWE should be playing up, not ignoring. And so, to me, I think Heyman's fingerprints are all over this storyline. So Reigns is the champion again, and his first challenger is Zeus, one of the cousins, is here to challenge him. I think this is 100% a Heyman idea, and for that reason, I'm very excited to see where it goes, because I think everything Paul Heyman touches is gold.
Absolutely, it does have all the fingerprints, and he was a former manager of the Wild Samoans. Like, no one got that connection until all this past week with some of the stuff that went down. Krssi, what was your thoughts on the big betrayal of Sasha Banks with Bayley finally betraying her best friend?
I thought it would have been the other way around, but I like what they're doing with this. I thought it would have been Sasha totally against Bayley, but it's all good. I'm still with the storyline. SmackDown was great. Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns gave me goosebumps. That first, Paul Heyman wasn't screaming at us. He was talking very low, and it was like he's roasting people. He's calling shots, and it's really very quiet tone. I'm getting goosebumps even talking about it right now. It was so good for Roman to be heel and then have Paul Heyman as his mouthpiece, and then he even talked afterwards. I was like, okay, he's just gonna stand there and just look mean. Didn't even matter. Then he spoke, and I was like, this is actually who, like you said, Paul Heyman. That is genius. He has written all of it, and then have him go against his cousin, because he was like, what you think about that whole little backstage interaction that they had? Great. I thought the whole thing was phenomenal. I thought the episode, finally, you're getting better episodes. Whoever is doing them, keep it that way.
Yes, I love the Paul Heyman promo, and just Paul Heyman making sure we knew that Roman is in control here. Roman was the one that hired me. Like, I'm not. I didn't go to him. Right. I'm not his advocate. I'm his special consultant. I love the difference between the Roman and Heyman and Brock. It was very unique, and I love that part about SmackDown. And
Whole
definitely,
mannerisms is all different too. Like he's different. He's totally different than when he was with Brock. I love it. It's beautiful.
and definitely love the betrayal of Bayley. And I like the fact that it's different from what we've gotten in the past. We've seen Sasha in the heel role before, Bayley being in the heel, and the way Bayley has been performing as a heel. I just think this is going to work a lot better, especially on the main roster. And I just hope that they don't rush Sasha back, that they bring her back for the Royal Rumble, and we can get this at WrestleMania. I hope I'm not alone with that one.
Agreed, totally agreed. Let's keep it. Let's build on to this. Like they're gonna, and then that package that they show us, the package that they show us from all of this, keep it this way. I swear, the gods, please listen.
3 years in the making. It would be beautiful. Over on Monday Night Raw, we had Drew McIntyre returning to get revenge on Randy Orton with 3 Claymore kicks. We had Cedric Alexander turning heel, joining the Hurt Business. We had Retribution, Aces and 5/8, cut their first promo and have their mission statement. And it's rumored to be Mercedes Martinez and Dominik Dijakovic speaking for them on Raw, with Mojo Rawley was also there as a part of the Retribution. SmackDown Tag Team Champion Cesaro and Nakamura challenge the Street Profits to a champions versus champions match next week, and the Mysterios beat Bloody Murphy like a piñata. That's how we ended Monday Night Raw. We asked every single guest that we bring on Tru Heel Heat about this group called Retribution. So, Steve, what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts been on this new mysterious group in WWE?
The jury is still out. Like anything, you've got to see what they do with it. I don't have great faith in it. I honestly think that when the ratings were terrible 6 weeks ago, they decided, well, we need to debut a faction. Well, who are they going to be? I don't know. Let's put them all in black hoods and pants. What are they going to do? I don't know. Break some stuff. All right, great. We'll figure it out later. And I don't know that they've figured it out yet. I want to think that there's going to be this brilliant long-term storyline like the reveal of Kane in 1997, but I honestly think they're making it up as they go, and I don't have great confidence in the outcome.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all, especially for what we've seen so far. Another stable, like we said before, that got boosted in their numbers. Cedric Alexander turning heel and joining the Hurt Business. I know our StatKing doesn't watch much of WWE. He's focused on Impact Wrestling and AEW. But what's your thoughts on Cedric joining the Hurt Business, and the overall picture of the Hurt Business with MVP Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin?
I want to see what the goal is. I don't see. I guess maybe okay. Yeah, they've gotten the United States Championship, so they've accomplished one thing. But I want to see what exactly is their stated goal. And then on top of that, if they're Hurt Business, and then there's a faction called Retribution, does that mean they gotta fight each other? Like how? Like what exactly is that whole thing gonna? How is that all gonna go down? Especially because they're not really going to be able to go for tag titles in the interim, because it seems as though they're kind of maybe building towards a champion versus champion, maybe unification. I don't know if that's the plan or what exactly that is. So it leaves a lot to be desired to see what is the direction for Hurt Business and Retribution. And Steve bringing up 6 weeks ago, that just made me think of something. Was Retribution, because again I don't really watch that much, was Retribution debut while Heyman was still in charge of Raw? Or no. Okay, no. So then maybe to your point about, hey, we need to do something, when they sent Heyman back into SmackDown and removed him as creative, they tossed out whatever his ideas were, and they were just like, we need to come up with something, let's just come up with this, not realizing that you need to actually have a storyline for TV time in place. So yeah, with the Hurt Business, I mean, Cedric Alexander, I don't think he's ever been heel before in WWE. So this, I mean, it's a good turn for him. So see how that works out.
It's very interesting times. A report that came out from our good friend Gary Cassidy of Sportskeeda was that Vince did not even read the Raw script until he was on a plane on his way to Orlando, Florida, and we had no announced matches for Monday Night Raw until about an hour before the show. The main event, like I said, was the Mysterios. Well, it was really Dominic Mysterio versus Murphy, and the Mysterios beating Murphy like a piñata. What's your thoughts, Krssi? We had a great discussion about Keith Lee and his push on Monday Night Raw, but Keith Lee has kind of not gotten as much of his push as Dominic Mysterio. Dominic Mysterio has gotten more of a light than Keith Lee. What's your thoughts on Dominic getting the main event this week?
First of all, I hate his ring gear. That's number one. I think thank you. Okay, so I thought it was just me. I think
now I need to find a picture of this.
Yeah, please, John. Well, no, John, you don't want to see it because it's ugly. And then I think it's getting worse week by week. To be honest, I think he had a different color on the other day. It's horrible. I don't like it at all. He does the frog splash, mediocre-ish. I don't understand the push for him. I'm happy Murphy is getting more shine. Other than that, I mean, I don't understand the whole Dominic thing.
Seems like he's getting shiners, not shine, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, that happened because he was a piñata the other day. That's the only reason. But I don't. Where is it gonna go? Like, is he in the talks of like gonna get a belt? Like, is he this a foreseeable future? Like, he's gonna go higher than he is now? Like, he's just gonna get a tag with his dad, and they're gonna still keep looking for revenge? I don't know.
Wait, what is he wearing?
See?
Well, something we did mention on the last episode was that Ray got a shoulder injury, a bicep injury from the match at Payback. So he's going to be out for a number of weeks. So Dominic is pretty much getting the push that Ray was going to get now that he's re-signed with WWE. I think it's more or less that's the whole story there. But the last thing what we missed was Impact Wrestling. Eric Young defeated Tommy Dreamer, and then Rich Swann made his return to Impact Wrestling to try to get revenge on EY. So we see that feud coming to fruition right now. Motor City Machine Guns with Steve's good friend Alex Shelley. They defeated another one of Steve's friends, the Rascals, to defend the Impact Tag Team titles. And then both teams were attacked by Ace Austin, Madman Fulton, and the North, only for the Good Brothers to make the save. What's your thoughts? I'll start with you, StatKing, since you are the Impact expert here. What was your thoughts on Rich Swann's return?
I like it. I mean, I've said on Dark Power, we don't really have confirmation. We've never had a full confirmation that he's actually retired. It always kind of looked like a kayfabe retirement. So for him to be coming back, it kind of puts into motion what a plan might be. And I think Rich Swann versus Eric Young at Bound for Glory sounds really, really good. They still have, it's October 24th, if I remember right, so they have about 2 months, maybe about a month and a half of time to build out the match, if that's where they want to go. A part of me almost wants Eddie Edwards to get his rematch at Bound for Glory, and then to have them, because usually the Hard to Kill was in January, to have them start off 2021 with Rich Swann winning the belt at the championship at a pay-per-view like Hard to Kill, because the name in and of itself just seems fitting for the storyline that they've built. But if they want to do it at Bound for Glory, because that's their marquee pay-per-view of the year, that would be perfectly great too. Either way, I think that's a really solid feud and a solid match for us to see down the road with Swann versus Eric Young.
So, Steve, like I said, you're good friends with the Rascals. You're like an advocate for them. And we did our Friday Night Lights preview. I would say, yeah, you're one of the bigger fans for the Rascals. But to me, like, I was thinking about it as I'm watching this match with the Motor City Machine Guns. I remember like a year and a half ago when the LAX seemed like they were out the door of Impact Wrestling. I was like, the Rascals is the perfect team to move to the titles to. But then the North came in, had their long run, and then the Rascals lose here in their title match. When are the Rascals going to finally win that Impact Tag Team titles? And what do you think is the thing that's stopping them from making that one obstacle leap?
Booking. You know, I think I'm not inside the head of Scott D'Amore and of Don Callis, and they're both good guys. I've met them, worked with them with a couple small things that we've done. I think I just look at talent somewhat differently than they do, and I look at their talent pool somewhat differently than they do. And I like a lot of the people at Impact in front of the camera and behind the camera, but I feel like Don Callis came of age in the 90s in WWE and ECW. Yeah. Scott D'Amore really, came of age, so to speak, in early 2000s, mid 2000s TNA, and that is so much of what we were getting in 2020 Impact. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you're sitting on a nuclear gold mine of talent, like the Rascals, like Chris Bay, who should be your headliners right now, and like Ace Austin. And I don't see the vision, to be honest with you. If I were running Impact, I would have the Rascals in trios matches every few weeks and just build up to them and let them go nuts. I would have Chris Bay all over the program. I'd have Ace Austin all over the program. I like what they're doing with Rich Swann. I don't understand what they're doing with Eric Young. No knock to EY, but I don't get it. It doesn't appeal to me. So I don't know when the Rascals are going to win the tag titles. And if it was me, it would have been yesterday. It would have been a lot of yesterdays ago.
I could totally agree there. I thought before Slammiversary that Ace Austin was on his way to becoming the youngest Impact World title, and he seems to have taken steps back into the tag team division, teaming up with Madman Fulton, and they make a really good team. But I just feel like Ace Austin is a guy that you should be building up as one of those future world champions, and I feel like he's taken kind of steps back since the build to Slammiversary. So I could totally agree with you there. He's one of the guys that they should be building around.
The problem with the Impact Tag Titles is you can already see that once the North gets it back, it's going to go to the Good Brothers. And you're just like, well, then where are the other teams in that mix? If you are going to put Ace and Fulton in the mix as a team, you need to have at least them look like they're going to have a legitimate shot at winning those titles. And the Rascals, they keep having they're you can understand, hey, the first time around, you didn't know who your opponents were going to be. Motor City Machine Gun stuns you. This time, you have the week to prepare, and they're still not able to win. So the question then is, what do the Rascals need to do? And you can see based off the teams they have, they're going to be waiting for a little while more, it seems.
Yeah, I want them to have trios titles at this point. Maybe the Rascals can get that.
It sounds like an episode of Game of Thrones, like the North, we're going to the Lannisters, we're going down to King's Landing. Sounds a lot.
It's a lot of that in Impact currently. But we gotta also talk about our top news, and our top news once again has to do with the WWE and a new edict from WWE as they banned the use of third-party platforms for their superstars. WWE has reportedly put their foot down on talent engaging on third-party platforms such as YouTube and Twitch. PW Insider and Wrestling Inc. reported that an email was sent out last Thursday to all talent that WWE is reinventing their product and want to limit talent engaging on third-party platforms. The email stated, and I quote, "Some of you are engaged with outside third parties using your name and likeness in ways that are detrimental to our company. It is imperative that these activities be terminated within the next 30 days by Friday, October 2nd. Continued violations will result to fines, suspensions, or termination of WWE's discretion." The vague wording of the email concerned a lot of talent who were using these platforms to make extra revenue during the pandemic to offset the loss of money due to WWE halting live events. It was all first reported that WWE also said that they own talent's real names, but this was later by Fightful Select reported that this was not stated to the talent. This was something that Mark Carano, who is the head of talent relations, said in passing, but is not true apparently. And some have taken to changing their usernames on YouTube and Twitch to fulfill WWE's requirements for use on these platforms. Due to the controversy, WWE had held a talent meeting before Raw to clarify things and released a statement saying, and I quote, Much like Disney and Warner Brothers, WWE creates, promotes, and invests its intellectual properties, i.e. the stage names of performers like The Fiend Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns, Big E, and Braun Strowman. It is the control and exploitation of these characters that allows WWE to drive revenue, which in turn enables the company to compensate performers at the highest levels in the sports entertainment industry. Notwithstanding the contractual language, it is imperative for the success of our company to protect our greatest assets and establish partnerships with third parties on a company-wide basis, rather than the individual level, which as a result will provide more value for all involved. So a lot has been said about this. We'll talk about later. AJ Styles mentioned it on his Twitch feed, and people such as Paige have changed to their real name on Twitch platforms, as well as Mia Yim changed her username on the Twitch platform as well. I will start with you, Steve. What is your thoughts on this new edict from WWE?
So professional wrestling is interesting in that, and this is often why I talk about why I love it and why it's one of the greatest forms of live entertainment. If a kid loves Batman, they can watch a Batman movie or cartoon. They can read a Batman comic book, but they can't actually go slap Batman's hand. There might be a guy playing Batman at Universal Studios, but Batman does not exist. Whereas if a kid loves John Cena exists. The kid can go meet the actual John Cena. And so in that way, wrestling is interesting. It's not quite fiction. It's not quite sports. It's somewhere in between, whereas the person is the living embodiment of that character. So with that in mind, you have this argument over who owns that. And WWE would argue that they own that middle ground, that Roman Reigns, for example, is WWE's property. So, according to Mark Carrano, is Joseph Anawahi. And anytime he does anything, they should profit off of that. Now, some could also argue it's like a sport, and they're free to do, you own them when they're on the field, so to speak, but they're free to do whatever the heck they want the moment the game or the practice is over. And it all depends on what they signed, and it all depends on what's enforceable in what they signed. I don't think WWE should be able to control this for talents. However, if they signed a binding contract that gave WWE the right to do this, then they don't have a leg to stand on. And so it really comes back to what did they sign? And frankly, if you're a talent, you need to be very careful with what you sign. And if WWE says you need to sign it this way or you're not coming to WWE, you need to think long and hard about whether you want to do that or not. At the end of the day, no one can force you to join WWE. You don't have to sign it if you don't want to. But if you signed it, you've got to live up to what you signed. So I don't know what's in their deals. If their deals say that they have to give over these likenesses, then I think they're stuck. But if their deals don't say that, then they have every right to fight it.
Yeah, it's a crazy kind of edict that WWE has put down here. I know U.S. presidential candidate Andrew Yang spoke out about this and talked about how confusing it is because WWE is saying they own their likeness. Some of the miscommunication said that WWE owned their real names, but these are independent contractors. So are they employees where you can own that type of stuff, or are they independent contractors that can make money off their likeness? So it's very confusing times, and Andrew Yang kind of called WWE out on that. He actually did an interview with Chris Van Vliet, which is definitely worth watching to kind of get his full thoughts on this. But Krssi Luv, we'll go to you. Do you believe this will cause talent to seek other opportunities outside of WWE and not re-sign when their contracts are up?
Like Steve said, it comes down to what you signed and who your lawyers are. If it's something like your name, like he said, like John Cena, doesn't John Cena own his name? I would think so, maybe. Or maybe it's just more of a WWE thing where they have all the John Cena rights. It's very confusing, and it's very what's the word I want to say? Misleading. Is that a good word? Probably. Yeah. It's misleading where you tell, like you said, they're independent contractors when it's convenient for you, but when something is wrong and y'all don't like it, then you put a stop to it. You understand if that makes sense? It's like you make us be independent. We pay our own insurance, all that other stuff. Like we have to do all that because we're independent. But our names and everything else belongs to you. it's so misguided, it's misleading, and it's unfortunate that people probably will look and say, hey, maybe I need to go back and look at certain things and see what it is I signed, or what I signed it so long ago, I didn't even know what I signed. Like, they're just happy to have this job and to do something that they dreamed of doing. So it's very misleading, and probably if some people can't have the rights to their name, or they probably might seek, other, employment and once their stuff is over. Who knows? It would be very sad and unfortunate, and it's shame on them to do such a low blow to people, that's been at their company. You know what I'm saying? So.
It's very strange. I know AEW poked fun at this with Kip Sabian promoting his Twitch at All Out, and then a disclaimer came up, approved by All Elite Wrestling. So it does open the door for people that have expiring contracts. If you want to make outside revenue outside of wherever company you're working for, maybe you make the jump to New Japan Pro Wrestling or AEW or Impact Wrestling, or go back to the Indies because you can make money from other outlets besides your wrestling promotion. Do you believe that WWE will stand by this new edict if it causes direct consequences in terms of signing talent? I think this is a great question for our resident Tru Heel lawyer, StatKing. Take it away.
Yes. So Steve's absolutely correct. If you sign a contract, you are signing it with the implication that you understand the terms of the contract. Always have a lawyer read over your contracts. I'm not saying that because I'm a lawyer. I'm saying that just because it makes good sense. I think it has to affect future signings down the road, because those talents now know what WWE is going to do and what they are going to ask of them in those contracts. Maybe at the time when somebody has a contract put in front of them, they may not know, they may not realize that this is standard for WWE. Maybe, they have somebody who is a friend who is now currently signed, and they talk to that person says, yes, this is what I signed as well, and they feel more comfortable signing it, whatever the case may be. But we have seen over time a slow march towards more autonomy and more control in the hands of the talent. For example, nobody thought back in the day that CM Punk would be able to sign as CM Punk, and that they would continue to use the name. But during the course of for the duration of his time in WWE, he gave them, they had control over the name. Whereas down the road, you see the evolution when AJ Styles signed with WWE. He was signing through, from what I understand, he was signing through an LLC corporation that he owns and that's why his Twitter handle is AJ Styles Org. And he is licensing as part of his contract. He signed a licensing agreement that licenses the AJ Styles name, certain trademarks, word marks, all that kind of imagery and things to WWE for the duration of the contract. However, he is the one who owns it. So you don't have a situation where if AJ Styles, at the end of his contract, he lets it expire, he goes to somewhere else, he can no longer call himself AJ Styles. He will always be able to call himself AJ Styles because he is the ultimate owner. So I think what this will do is it will encourage more wrestlers to trademark their names when it comes with their ring names, to have better knowledge. And the thing is, a lot of this knowledge it's out there for free. It's not like you don't need to go to law school to get a lot of this. It's readily available on the internet. But putting it into practice is going to be something that these guys and girls are going to be getting better at. And it's going to be incumbent on WWE to understand, hey, because of the situation, cat's out of the bag. We now have to either be more creative when it comes to the language in these contracts and how we're going to write them, or we need to understand that our control is going to be a lot less. And then this also goes back to, at least in my perspective, in my view, them misusing the 1099 independent contractor rules and laws when it comes to their talent. I'm going to try to keep this as short as I can, because I can go on this for a long period of time. But long story short is that there are rules and regulations that govern how a company is able to control the contractors that work for them. WWE pushes that to the limit. They combine Extreme Rules and Over the Limit to just pushing it to the extreme limit of what the law can handle. And for the most part, nobody has ever really challenged them on this, either through the courts or through legislative process.
Okay.
And because, I mean, as big as people think WWE is, and it is big, it's a global juggernaut, it is the largest, when it comes to market share, it owns it. But in the grand scheme of things, they're not that large of a company. So if other companies are following 1099 rules, it doesn't make sense for any form of Justice Department, whether it's at the state level or federal level, or legislatures, to go after them. But if you have somebody like Andrew Yang, who is now getting more information and more knowledge about this, and doesn't like it, or thinks as though there should be something that can be done, that's another thing that WWE is going to have to keep in mind and say, hey, is it worth the fight? Is it worth the fight? Should we just take the hit to our bottom line and say, we'll just let this go?
Yeah, go ahead, Krssi.
And use, Rissa when you leave somewhere.
Yeah. I was just going to jump in as well and say, when CM Punk left WWE in 2014, and there was that back and forth where they weren't going to let him go, they weren't, they fired him on his wedding day, and then ultimately they released him from his contract. I forget where I heard this from, what source, but the source I trusted. The big breaking point there, that them eventually agreeing to release him, was that his lawyers were going hard at the independent contract status. And that if WWE felt like they were on shaky footing or might lose a lawsuit there, then you know what? They'd much rather just release him, give him a severance, and be done with him. And that is truly, I mean, not to get too much into politics in the world, the fact that Linda McMahon, who for a long time was the CEO of WWE, was straight up abusing labor practices by classifying people as independent contractors when they were treated as employees, and then became the small business director of the United States of America, is absolutely insane. But I agree, they have flown under the radar either because of political connections or because they're too small of a company to really be scrutinized. No, the state of Illinois, the state of Connecticut, wherever, does not want to waste their legislature's time and money on prosecuting the WWE. But they have been straight up abusing this rule for a long time. And I think with AEW treating people well, I think we are getting closer and closer to this changing, to this dam breaking.
Yeah, absolutely agree with everything you guys have said. It's just a very strange time, and it's very confusing to understand WWE of why they're making this stance at this point when there is so much competition and so much eyes on them. It's just very strange of an edict to kind of put in place right now.
I mean, well, that's the thing. I can understand it from a business perspective, because let's take the situation that people say was the straw that broke the camel's back with Lana and the Bang energy drinks. If WWE wants to now sign some kind of endorsement either with Bang or with a competitor to Bang, they're now banged in that spot and unable to do so because that contract, that business relationship with Lana exists. So from their perspective, I can totally understand why they're upset about it. If they, you could make an argument that AJ's Twitch stream is a direct competitor with Up Up Down Down, and WWE owns it, whether people realize it or not. They own and control Up Up Down Down. They're not selling Up Up Down Down replica belts on WWE Shop because they like Xavier Woods. And on top of this, the reason why one of the reasons why I stopped watching Up Up Down Down is because when they were doing the season 2 of GM mode, they put people into the game that were current WWE superstars. And then after the COVID releases, there was some data loss or something that happened, and all those people who were on the rosters but were released during the COVID magically disappeared from the GM mode that Xavier Woods and Tyler Breeze were playing. And when I saw that, I realized, no, you're not talking about Jericho anymore. You're not talking about people that were released like Rusev and so on and so forth. This is ultimately still a WWE controlled product. And that's what really made me realize that, no. So, of course, if AJ is doing Twitch and Up Up Down Down exists, that's some form of competition. Why would they want AJ to get dollars when it should be going to them?
So we got to move on, guys, but we got to talk about this week's WWE NXT with Super Tuesday Part 2, as well as the post All Out AEW Dynamite. It is not the Wednesday Night War because, like I said, NXT was on Tuesday, AEW was on Wednesday, but we love to talk about the ratings, talk about both shows, and decide what was the better show for the week. Krssi Luv, you want to hit the drums while I give you the ratings? So, NXT Super Tuesday Part 2 finishes with 838,000 viewers. It's slightly down from last week's 849,000, but still one of the better ratings for NXT for the year. They got a 0.22 in the 18 to 49 key demo, and this is another argument for the ongoing discussions of whether NXT should be on the same night as AEW, but AEW was unopposed on Wednesday night, and they finish with 1.016 million viewers. Yes, AEW went over a million viewers for the first time in 2020, the first time since last year on the beginning episodes of AEW Dynamite for the post All Out edition. WWE NXT Super Tuesday Part 2 in a great opener had Finn Balor defeat Adam Cole to become the new NXT champion, concluding that Iron Man match from the previous week. Honestly, I felt that this was a better match than the Iron Man match. It was really awesome between both men. Rhea Ripley defeated Mercedes Martinez in a hard-hitting steel cage main event. Tegan Nox and Candice LeRae had a dinner to talk over their differences. I'll let you guys talk about that one. Kushida returns to attack Velveteen Dream. Bronson Reed defeated Austin Theory. Io Shirai and Shotzi Blackheart take out the Robert Stone brand and then have a face-to-face confrontation before they have a non-title match next week over on AEW Dynamite. The big news is Miro. Happy Miro Day. The artist formerly known as Rusev made his AEW debut as the best man of Kip Sabian for his wedding in a couple of weeks' time. Brody Lee defeated Dustin Rhodes in a good main event to defend the TNT Championship. We had further development, like Steve mentioned earlier, of the breakup of the Elite, as Hangman Page and Kenny Omega both had sit-down interviews with JR, with Omega saying he is done with the tag team division and wants to be the guy that everybody thought he would be from day one. Jurassic Express defeated Lucha Bros to earn a non-title match with FTR next week. Nyla Rose defeated the newly signed Tay Conte and then was confronted by Shida. John Moxley had a great promo, as well as MJF ended his campaign and is deciding of a plan B to get back on top. But what was the better show for the week? This week we will start with you, Miss Krssi Luv.
I am going to pick AEW only. Other than that, I would have picked because Finn Balor finally won. Okay, so. But apples to oranges, they had the better show. Let's just keep it 100. And the ratings just prove it and tell you it and why they won for the week. The main event, I actually loved. I thought was great. I thought for those two guys, I thought was amazing to have them. These two big guys close out the show, and they close it out very well. I knew Brody would win, of course, duh. But I thought that was amazing. MJF promo. We called it last week. He's gonna come up with some type of excuse and said why he lost and all this other stuff. Phenomenal, great. I just thought the overall show was better than NXT. NXT, the opener, great, loved it, and then I checked out in the middle, and then I saw the ending. That's me, to be honest. Not even gonna lie and say I saw the whole thing. I checked out, was watching the playoffs, and then I turned back.
Well, we appreciate your honesty always, Miss Krssi Luv. Principal Steve, what was your thoughts, and what would you think was the better show for the week?
You know, same exact response as she said. I saw NXT in clips, and I've been crazy busy this week as we have a show later on this weekend. And so I did get to check out Dynamite. I thought it was a really strong show. I agree about MJF. I think the finish of the MJF Moxley match at All Out was phenomenal because it allows MJF to blame Wardlow and to blame Moxley. So he kind of has two built-in complaints or two built-in feuds. Everything else I thought was exciting. I thought it was a great Dynamite, and I'm happy for Finn Balor. This is going to sound jaded, maybe, but I was all aboard the Finn Balor train in 2014. It is 2020. I was all aboard the Finn Balor train when he came up and won the Universal title for a day in 2016. It is 2020. I think he's phenomenal. I think that train has sailed. You know, nobody's walking around saying, "Oh my gosh, have you heard of this great new band called Maroon 5?" Like, it's happened.
Maroon 5 is legends, first of all. Let's not do that.
I love Finn Balor, but the ship has sailed, I think. I hope they prove me wrong.
I can't say you're wrong.
I as much as I love Finn Balor, something of what you're saying is true, and it's sad because when we had time to have the sail, I mean the ship doing well on the cruise line, we could have had it rolling, but now that the ship is sailing in a way that went in the sunset, no one is like, okay, yay. I think I was the only person that was excited and happy. But hey, let's see what happens.
And you make a great point, Steve, because even when Finn Balor came back to NXT, that would have been also a good time to kind of put the title back on him. Like this whole Iron Man match, and then this week it just feels like this is something that wasn't planned because it wasn't. Karrion Kross was supposed to be the NXT champion right now, but because of injury, that's the only reason Finn Balor is getting this. So yes, it kind of feels like rehashed of something that's already happened. That was great when it happened, but it's like a remake. It's like a reboot in Hollywood. As you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles gonna come out again. I saw it in 1990. It was great, but in 2020, so just that. King, what was your thoughts? What was the better show for the week?
Well, I don't watch WWE programming anymore, so it's difficult for me to rate this. But I will say that I watched the clips from YouTube of the NXT show, and I will say that I like that Shotzi Blackheart is starting to rise up more and more the ranks of the women's division in NXT. That's something I'm looking forward to hearing about. And I will say that Finn Balor winning is good, but again, he's not winning this title unless Karrion Kross is injury. The same way that you could say that Kevin Owens doesn't get his Universal Championship unless Finn Balor gets his shoulder injury back in the day. So I mean. They made the right call with who won the match out of the four. Ultimately, who won the match out of the four people involved. So I mean, we'll see how NXT builds this going forward.
I gotta agree with you guys. I saw both shows this week, but NXT was a very solid show. Had a excellent opener with Adam Cole and Finn Balor. Like I said, it was better than the Iron Man match last week. The main event with Rhea Ripley versus Mercedes Martinez, it was hard hitting. It was the battle of the badasses as they promoted the whole night, and Rhea Ripley looked great in victory. I also really enjoyed Bronson Reed versus Austin Theory. I thought that was a really good matchup.
Austin Theory.
Hey, Austin Theory made some mistakes. We're not going to get into that. We went into that on our Speaking Out movement episode, so we won't get into it on this one. But
I remember.
This was a very strong matchup. But other than that, it really wasn't much happening on NXT. AEW was the more newsworthy show. It was the more exciting show. And on a show that was very promo heavy, all the promos hit in their certain ways. Like Hangman playing the millennial cowboy who's sad, who all this time he hasn't been saying anything, but now he finally admits it's his fault that he lost his two best friends in the Young Bucks. It's his fault that he trusted FTR. It's his fault that he lost the tag team titles. And And like he said, him and Kenny Omega have been the best tag team in AEW this year. They had one loss the entire year, and that one loss was at All Out. So they're still the top team, but Kenny Omega is just like, no, I dedicated a year to the tag team division. I'm over that. And I love the juxtaposition in the two guys, and that was like a great follow-up to the further development of this breakup of the Elite, especially with the Young Bucks also super kicking Alex Marvez out of their locker room was a very nice touch as well. I love the Jon Moxley promo, love the Lance Archer promo, love the MJF promo. Miro, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed him coming out. He put a smile on my face, but I would have liked it if he didn't have the prototypical FWWE promo.
Yeah.
That would, if he would have just focused on being the best man and his connections with Kip and why it made sense, because we said it on our roundtable for All Out. He was the top guy that made sense because not only is he have experience with weddings, he just came off of a big angle with a wedding last year that was one of the highest rated segments in Monday Night Raw of 2019, but he has experience being a Twitcher along with Kip Sabian. So those two connections made him the perfect person to be the best man, and it was a nice position for him to come into. I don't know if that's going to be his future because he just seems like the perfect guy to be a babyface for AEW, and that response that he got from the limited fans in attendance kind of proved that. But AEW was just the more newsworthy show. It was the better show. I love Dustin Rhodes versus Brody Lee. That was a great main event. And this was one of my favorite episodes of Dynamite the whole year, so I definitely got to give it to AEW this week.
The only thing I wasn't that big of a fan of was that I get that Jurassic Express needed the win because of what's going to happen later in the show with FTR and setting them up for a non-title match the week after. I just wish it hadn't had to come at the expense of the Lucha Bros, because they seem to be like floundering a little bit. And then you paired them with Butcher Blade and then Eddie Kingston, but then as a fivesome, they still seem to be kind of floundering a little bit, and I want to know where that's going, where that's building towards.
I felt like the whole them losing led to the Eddie Kingston promo, and we don't get that Eddie Kingston promo without them losing. So there was a purpose. Yeah. There was a purpose to them losing, and we know with AEW they're not like other companies where they're gonna do something and it's not gonna mean anything. I think this whole disruption between the Lucha Bros is going to lead to something, and I think that, you know, although they have been floundering as a team, maybe the best thing for the Lucha Bros is to be separated. As we saw in Lucha Underground, Pentagon can be a great top heel, and Phoenix is one of the best wrestlers in the ring in any company, so maybe the best thing for them is to be separated. So maybe this was just a tease of what's to come.
And as somebody who had said it since the beginning of the storyline with QT Marshall and Allie, the fact that Eddie Kingston asked Braxton Sutter, the Blade, "Where's your wife?" Just that was a great touch for me. I was like, why is Allie with QT Marshall? We know she's married. What is? I don't understand this. But yeah.
And I'm also hoping we get Pac versus Eddie Kingston. I would love it.
Yes. Where's the English guy? Where's the British guy? He's not here for you.
I think we are headed. So one of my baffling points with AEW has long been their use of Pentagon and Phoenix, because we've used Pentagon and Phoenix in our shows many times. We like them very much personally. I think they're the best performers in the world. I think Pentagon is the best at charisma and presence in the world. I think Phoenix is the most spectacular wrestler in the world. And AEW has just kind of used them as jobbers to the stars a little bit. And I don't know if it's just AEW is so focused on American style that they haven't figured out how to push two true luchadors yet. I don't know if it's because Pentagon and Phoenix might not be under a full exclusive contract, because I know they're just kind of independent dudes. But I think my hunch with this is that they figured out, well, we can't put Pentagon and Phoenix over all of our regular teams, but we want to feature them. What the heck do we do? You know what we do? We start a long storyline where eventually they're going to face each other on Full Gear. And I will sign me up for that any day of the week. I will watch that match.
I saw it live at WrestleCon, WrestleMania 35 weekend, and they only got 8 minutes. It was one of the best 8-minute matches I've ever seen, and I want Penta versus Phoenix in AEW. That would be magic. Mm-hmm. So we got to move on for the rest of the news. I'll run through. WWE announces that they are doing more cutbacks, including the firing of Gerald Briscoe after 38 years with the company and being responsible for the recruitment of such stars as Brock Lesnar. This is quite the loss for WWE. This was just announced early on Thursday. Also, AOP were released from the WWE contracts. Also, Wrestling Observer reported that Razor of AOP was cleared for action prior to their release, and WWE wanted to place Paul Ellering back with the team months back, but unfortunately they have been let go. So we wish them, Gerald Briscoe and AOP, best of luck in their future, whatever it is. Gerald Briscoe, after 38 years with WWE, deserves to have like a great retirement. He's done so much great work for them. AJ Styles commented on WWE's ban of the third-party platforms that we spoke about earlier, saying that he will continue his Twitch feed under changes, as well as the reasons why he admitted to testing positive for the coronavirus, and to help others' concerns, because he just felt like it was something that needed to be said on that platform. WWE announces that their concussion lawsuit, so this is very similar to the third-party ban, because such stars as Viscera and others have had this lawsuit going on for years, was dismissed by the Court of Appeals this week. Xavier Woods, speaking of Up Up Down Down, have opened up their own merchandise store with products made by our good friends at Nerds Clothing. So congratulations to Up Up Down Down and Nerds Clothing's on that. WWE PC is being remodeled with classes back in session. WWE also have a city in mind for the Royal Rumble 2020, but are still working out details in regards to having live fans back in the building. Ivar of the Viking Raiders suffered a stinger, causing a cervical injury during his match on Monday Night Raw, so we're hoping the best for him. Former WWE superstar Eve Torres and her husband Renard Gracie tested positive for the Steve Corino virus. I have wrote down here the spell check for you. WWE edits WXW shows to remove individuals involved in the speaking out movement, and Renee Young non-compete clause is said to be 1 year long, as reported by her in a recent interview. So, StatKing, what's your thoughts on Renee Young having a 1 year long non-compete clause?
I think that it shows how much WWE valued her from a business standpoint and how important she was to them from a business standpoint. And it shows how much they messed up when it came to allowing her to leave the building. Because if that is the level of like normal talents non-compete is 90 days. So if hers is a year, 365 days, that's huge. That's incredible. I mean, I would assume that if let's say it was a Seth Rollins type of person, it would also be somewhere in that same vein of duration. But 1 year, that just, it goes to show how much legitimacy she was able to bring to the backstage interviewing process, to how just all of that was run and handled, and some of the stuff she did on the network, as well as the pre-show panels and the kickoff and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's just incredible, and I kind of feel bad for her because I mean, you got to sit on the sidelines. You can't really, because I mean, the way most non-competes work is you can't do anything that's in a similar vein to the work that you were doing before. So WWE could argue a wide latitude when it comes to that, because it's not just commentating, it's also interviewing and things like that. And then the other thing that I would say is it's kind of an interesting reversal of what Samoa Joe said that one time, where her husband is just sitting at home eating off of her, and now it's, you know, she's being put in a similar position. So.
Funny how things turn around. AEW news, Tay Conte as well as Miro, as we mentioned earlier, are the latest signees for AEW. Miro's contract is 1 year long with an option for a second year for a higher price. Miro denies that Lana had anything to do with WWE's edict on third parties, and he tells our Uncle Dave Meltzer to burn in hell for making that accusation. Both Matt Sydal and Darby Allin are doing okay after scary spots and botches for the two in the Casino Battle Royal at All Out. AEW also announces that Jon Moxley will defend the AEW World Championship against Lance Archer on the 1-year anniversary show for Dynamite on October 14th. Tony Khan says that the third hour on TNT that AEW got in their suspension earlier this year will not be dark and will premiere within the next year. And in Thunder Rosa news, the NWA World Women's Champion will defend her title next week on Dynamite against Ivelisse. And also, she admits that WWE offered her a tryout as a referee last September, which she declined, wanting to continue to wrestle. As you said before, you've worked with Thunder Rosa before, Steve. What's your thoughts on WWE offering her a job as a referee and not a wrestler?
You know, it's interesting. I think WWE has a very up and down history of talent evaluation. And there are some talents, and that's true of anybody, right? So WCW let go of Mick Foley and Steve Austin, and they became Mick Foley and Steve Austin. And earlier, The Undertaker and Triple H, etc. So I think there is a lot that goes into that. And it's very easy for any of us to say, oh, this person is great, and so-and-so passed on them years before. Isn't so-and-so so stupid? But the reality is there's 100 factors that go into things, right? So maybe Thunder Rosa was part of a camp with 40 other women, and she had an off day. And at that time, they said, you know what? We don't see it as a star, but we are looking for athletic female referees. And so I don't want to call it a slight against WWE until I know all the context of what happened there. But they have been up and down with talent scouting, and I think part of that is because the way they scout talents through these camps and things is not seeing people in their natural environments. I think WWE needs to do more of what they've done when it's been very successful in scouting talents, which is when William Regal has gone to PWG and stood in the back and watched and signed everyone that became NXT. I think WWE needs to be much more present on the indie scene, because had they seen Thunder Rosa in freelance wrestling in the Logan Square Auditorium in Chicago, they damn well would have signed her in a heartbeat. So maybe they saw her in a camp and she didn't do it for them in one of their camps. So I think it's not necessarily an indictment of a mistake they made then, because maybe she didn't stand out that day. But I think it might be an indictment of the way they look for talent. They need to be out in the indies seeing wrestlers in their natural habitat.
That's a great way to explain it. And yeah, you just had to not see Thunder Rosa in the right place to kind of not offer her a job as a wrestler, because she's one of the best female wrestlers in the game right now. New Japan news: the finals of the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Titles Tournament is going to be this weekend, as LIJ of Hiromu Takahashi and Bushi will versus Suzuki Guns, Kanemaru, and El Desperado on the final night of New Japan Road to determine the new champions. And in the bigger news, New Japan announces the participants and blocks for the G130, which kicks off on September 19th. We will have a full preview of the G1 next week on Tru Heel Heat 92, but the A block will have Kota Ibushi, as our StatKing has the t-shirt for the Gutter Than Lovers right there, Jeff Cobb, Kazuchika Okada, Tomohiro Ishii, Will Ospreay will make his return to New Japan, Shingo Takagi, Minoru Suzuki, Taishi, Switchblade Jay White, and Yujiro Takahashi. This A block is one of the greatest blocks in G1 history, period. You just imagine Ibushi versus Okada in the rematch from Wrestle Kingdom, Ishii versus Shingo Takagi in another rematch, Ospreay versus Shingo in the Best of the Super Juniors rematch. Suzuki has been having one of the best years of anybody, so this block is just stacked ridiculous. B block is not as stacked, but definitely has some good performers: Hiroshi Tanahashi, Juice Robinson, Haruki Goto, Toriano, Yoshihashi, Tetsuya Naito, Sanada, Zack Sabre Jr., Evil, and Kenta. StatKing, I know you said this is stacked. What's your thoughts on the G1 participants?
I am super excited that Ospreay and White and Kenta will be back. That is, for me, like the one thing, even before I started thinking of what the matchups are and what the rematches that we're going to see and all that, which is amazing in and of itself, is just the fact that those three guys are going to be able to get back in the ring in Japan, being able to do what they're doing, and it's going to take. I mean, as we were talking about it last week, it's going to take some of the burden off of Evil, of being that evil, of being the that top heel that Bullet Club has to offer, because he's going to have backup now when it comes to Switchblade and Kenta. Jay White's going to, and we don't know, maybe there's going to be some kind of tension between Evil and Jay White, saying, hey, I was holding this down while you were away. I think maybe I should be the leader now, or something to that effect. And then you could also say, well, then Kenta might get involved and say, well, it could be me too, guys. Like, you never know. I can put people to sleep. So it'll just the opportunity that's being created just by having these guys back is incredible. And maybe, as we were talking about earlier in AEW, if Ospreay is able to leave England, maybe that means Pac is able to also.
Hey, we will see for sure. But yes, we're very glad all those talents is back in the G1 and back with New Japan for sure.
This tournament is still gonna be that month-long thing.
Yes, it's from September 19th to October 18th, Krssi Luv. But we will talk about it for sure next week to annoy you.
Wow, that's such a strong word. Wow.
ROH News, ROH announces another bracket for another tournament, pure title tournament for them. Their A block is going to have Jay Lethal versus Dalton Castle, David Finlay versus Rocky Romero, Silas Young versus Freddie Yehai, Tracy Williams versus Russ Taylor. In the B block, they will have Jonathan Grisham versus Wheeler Utah, Delirious versus Matt Seidel, Josh Woods versus Kenny King, and PJ Black versus Tony Deppen. Any prediction for who you think is going to be the pure title champion, Steve?
I think it's got to be Gresham. I think Gresham is the epitome of technical wrestling. Now, full disclosure, we have Gresham on our second show 10 days from now on the 19th, and for a very good reason. And so he's facing Alex Shelley in a dream rematch for us. Nice. But Gresham, I think, is the epitome of catch, hook, and shoot wrestling right now. He really is the octopus. And I know he's one of the main stars and mainstays of Ring of Honor. So if I'm Ring of Honor, I build around my guy. Instead of a quick upset or somebody, you build around your guy and you reestablish this title. Because remember, this title hasn't been in defense in ROH in, 13 years? So I think you put it on Jonathan Gresham, and I think Gresham holds it for a year, and you make it something special. You make the title an attraction.
Love to see that for sure. Alternates for the title is going to be Dirk Draper and Brian Johnson. Other wrestling news, we got MLW announces the restart and coming to November, and they will join the Wednesday Night War, but they will be before AEW and NXT. 7 p.m. on Fubu Sports on Wednesdays will be MLW. A new 10 Pounds of Gold series is already up with Nick Aldis versus Mike Bennett for next Tuesday's UWN Primetime Live event. This card is a very good one. We also going to see West Coast Pro Championship match with Alexander Hammerstone defending against EJ Sparks, excuse me. UWN TV champion is going to be Dan Joseph versus Levi Shapiro. Camille is going to go one-on-one with Heather Monroe. Chris Dickinson is going to verse mystery opponent. We'll have Will All Day versus Jordan Clearwater, and the Tribe will go up against the Wolf Zaddies, Bad Dude Tito, and Che Cabrera. So a lot of new stars.
With a Z?
Huh?
Zaddy with a Z?
No, Zaddies with a Z. The Wolf Zaddies. The Wolf Zaddies. Hey,
okay.
These are new stars, so check it out for sure. It's going to be available on Tuesday, September 15th on pay-per-view. They're going to have weekly pay-per-views with NWA. In the last bit of NWA news, once again, your good friend, Steve, Thunder Rosa, says that she wants to be a booker for NWA in a recent interview with Fightful Select. Krssi Luv, what are your thoughts on Thunder Rosa potentially being a female booker in the professional wrestling world for one of the top promotions, NWA?
I like it. Do it. Let's have the ladies get us, put their hand in the pot, stir it up, and let's do it. I'm sure they can do it. I'm sure she'll do a very good job.
and it's something new. It's something new. We always love to see that. And then finally, we have gotten to that time where we talk about the big show this Saturday. It is going to be in Chicago Heights at that beautiful, beautiful stadium. If you saw Friday Night Lights, that stadium is immaculate. I must say, Principal Steve, you do a good job at picking locations, and I know that is your homestead, your home away from home right there. But that stadium just looks immaculate. I saw the whole show on FITE TV. Unfortunately, I couldn't get out to Chicago, Illinois. I know StatKing, you were in the crowd. How was that experience being in the stadium from the crowd perspective?
I thought it was really great. The way you guys had it all set up with people with having rings of people being able to sit in rings, so to speak, around the ring itself, and then people being able to really be involved with the talent, because when Robin and Frank the Clown came out for the title match, they were driving on a like a golf cart rig set up. They were driving around everybody, so everybody got to be involved. Everybody got to tell Frank what they thought of him and give him their 2 cents, and that was amazing. So I liked how you guys just had everything set up, even with the fan fest beforehand, with people able to meet talent, which you guys are great at allowing people to interact with talent. So yeah, hats off to you guys again. And I mean, why do I need to talk about it? I'll let you tell us everything we need to know about the amazing show that the people are going to be able to watch on FITE.
Well, I got the card right here, so I will run it down and get Steve's thoughts on each and every one of these big matches. So I'm going to go from bottom to top. That's how we usually do with our main cards that we predict here. And I will kick it off with Steve here. We got Tom Lawler, who I told you on our Friday Night Lights preview show that was on Wrestling Travel. You could check that out on their YouTube channel. That Tom Lawler versus Minoru Suzuki was the first dream match that I ever saw from Warrior Wrestling, and I've been a fan of you guys ever since then. And he is going to verse Kevin Ku, who just signed with MLW that we just spoke about earlier. So how did you come together with this matchup, and what's your thoughts on it?
Well, great question. So we love working with Tom Lawler. Tom has been on 3 Warrior Wrestling shows. He's faced Chris Ridgway, Killer Cross, and Minoru Suzuki. And for booking Tom Lawler, you need to put together a very particular match. Tom can wrestle anybody anywhere. He's a very versatile guy, but Tom excels in those MMA hybrid style matches. A lot of strikes, a lot of submissions, a lot of quick suplexes, etc. So you got to find somebody that can go pound for pound with Tom like that. Kevin Ku is somebody whom we've had our eye on for about 2 years now. He and his partner Dominic Guarini are Violence is Forever on the Indies. They're an incredible tag team that is MMA striking, submission, and explosive suplex based. And so we knew we wanted a Tom Lawler match on this show, and so we went no further than guys that he knows really well and matched him up with Kevin Ku. So for the audience that doesn't know Kevin, they're going to walk away from this show incredibly impressed. And everybody knows Tom, and everybody loves Tom Lawler.
So Steve, what we usually do with these big shows, if we also add in our predictions, I won't get your predictions because you might be spoiling stuff, and that's a conflict of interest. So Krssi Luv, who you got? Kevin Ku versus Tom Lawler.
Tom Lawler for the win.
StatKing?
I'm going to go with Lawler as well.
I'm going to go with Lawler as well, even though I'm very much looking forward to seeing Kevin Ku and seeing what he has now that he's a new signee to MLW. And this is like, you guys are having it before MLW. So you're a tricky guy, Steve. I got to hand it to you. We got returning from Mexico, DAGA, going one-on-one with ISAIAS VELAZQUEZ. And VELAZQUEZ was one of the guys that stood out the most for me during Friday Night Lights. He's a guy that I wasn't too familiar with. I know he's a mainstay in the Chicago area. But Steve, tell us a little bit about this one.
Sure. So this has implications not only as an excellent match, but also for the main event of the show. So first of all, as you said, ISAIAS is a staple here in Chicago. He is the ace of freelance wrestling and freelance underground. He's starting to branch out to some other places as well. He really is just a phenomenal wrestler. And he's one of those guys where if a greater spotlight was on him, people would take to him immediately. And so now he's beginning to get that. He's wrestled a little GCW. He's starting to spread out from the Chicago area, and we want to be all aboard that train. DAGA has been a standout everywhere he's been, from AAA to Impact to Lucha Underground, and their styles, we think, complement each other incredibly well. And so this is going to be an awesome match. DAGA has put his AAA title on the line. The Latin American Heritage title is on the line. And as well as I mentioned a moment ago, this has implications for the main event. Because each of these gentlemen, it is no coincidence that they're facing off on this show. They each have a significant other who is going to close the night out. So not only are they fighting for a title, not only are they fighting for a victory, they are fighting for bragging rights for their better halves.
They're trying to get momentum in the household for this one. It's the battle of the households between this match and the main event. So who you got, VELAZQUEZ versus DAGA on this one? I know you're biased, StatKing, but I'll ask you anyway.
ISAIAS. I'm a freelance guy, so ISAIAS for sure.
Who you got, Krssi?
I got DAGA.
I'm gonna also go with DAGA on this one. This is one of his first matches, fresh from Mexico. The newly married DAGA, so congratulations to him for sure. This one has implications on the next big show for Stadium Series. Number one contenders matchup is gonna be two of indie wrestling's. They're like living legends in the indie wrestling world right now, with Joey Janela of AEW versus the man who went one-on-one with Cody a number of weeks ago for the TNT Championship, WARHORSE.
Wow.
I gotta hand it to you for making this match right here, Steve.
Right?
But like, what was the thought process behind this one?
You got pulled.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said these guys are two of independent wrestling's mainstays right now. And we want to, when we build a show, have a variety of different types of matches. We want some flying, we want some technical, we want some brawling, etc. We want an indie dream match. And if you are an indie wrestling person, especially on social, you know and love WARHORSE. And if you have been an indie wrestling person for a few years, you know and love Joey Janela. Well, for the first time ever, they clash. One of them wins and challenges Pillman next week. We're excited for this one.
Wow.
Yes, and I'm very much looking forward to this match and the resulting match against Brian Pillman Jr. Brian Pillman Jr. showed so much in that matchup against Robert Anthony at Friday Night Lights. So these guys got to really bring it in this match to kind of prepare themselves for Pillman next week. But who do you got in this one, Miss Krssi Luv, with WARHORSE and Janela?
Oh, this is a tough one. I'm going with Janela. Is he going to bring Sunny Kiss with him?
We don't know.
You never know. It's a bad romance. You know, we didn't talk about their match with on Dynamite with the Inner Circle, Chris Jericho and Jake Hager. I will say I love Joey Janela, but Sunny Kiss definitely was a standout in that one. But who you got, Janela versus WARHORSE in this one, the StatKing?
I'm going to go with Janela. Janela had that win over Jake something at the Friday Night Lights show. Now he picks up the win over WARHORSE, and he's building that momentum towards the match with Pillman. Let's get to that.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good match.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be different here, and I'm gonna go with WARHORSE. WARHORSE just has so much energy, and I think we talked about it on our preview show for Friday Night Lights, Steve. I feel he's like a hybrid of Ultimate Warrior and CM Punk just rolled into one. It's just a wonderful mix that he has and he brings to this. So this one is very interesting. This is coming off of the match that WARHORSE won at Friday Night Lights. These are two competitors that were in the Stadium Stampede Scramble match. That was such a unique matchup with so many different characters, and these are two of the characters that stood out the most in that one, as we're gonna have Dan the Dad going one-on-one with ELAYNA Black. And I know ELAYNA Black made her debut at Friday Night Lights, Steve. So how did you come up with this one following up from that Scramble match?
Well, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're always looking to put on very different types of matches for our audience. And one of those is character matches. You know, wrestling is fun. Wrestling should be fun. So just after you watch incredible athletes tear it up and fly all over the place, you should be able to watch incredible characters interact too. And I think both of these stars, Dan the Dad and ELAYNA Black, have really come into their own in the last year or so and really found their character. And so not only are they very well developed, but the match is perfect as well. You have everybody's dad versus the rebellious, young, goth, possibly, satanical witch. And so I think it's just a really cool dynamic to see how that's going to play out.
As a dad, I'm I can only imagine if my sweet baby Harlem grows up to be a goth witch. So I am going to root for Dan the Dad in this one. Yes, I'm gonna go against the grain here. Krssi Luv, who you got?
I'm going with the goth.
You got ELAYNA Black in this one?
Yeah.
All right. So one for ELAYNA Black, one for Dan the Dad. Who you got, StatKing?
I'm going to break the tie in favor of ELAYNA Black. I've seen her do great work with Jesus Bryce in Freelance. I've seen her in the Scramble match last month. She has a very good character, but just as you're saying, the concept of father dealing with a rebellious child, like that, just in and of itself, when you have Dan the Dad's ability to work a crowd with facial reactions, with building up to spots, that's going to play off very well with her. So looking forward to the match, and ELAYNA Black is my pick.
So I would just say with these final 5 matches, I wouldn't argue with anyone who predicted any of these matches to steal the show. But starting off with this one, this is a woman's dream match in my opinion, as you have the NWA World Women's Champion Thunder Rosa going one-on-one with Kimber Lee. This is Impact Wrestling versus NWA in this one. If you know the history, you're a very tricky man, Steve, for making this one. But how did you come up with this?
It's the first time ever, and we think very highly of these two women. We've wanted to work with both of them for a long time, and it was the perfect match. Kimber Lee is strength and suplexes and strikes and shocking agility. Thunder Rosa is that hybrid MMA style athlete, kicks, submissions, reversals, speed, and I think they're going to gel incredibly well. And we have a lot of fans in Chicago of both. Thunder Rosa has been in Freelance a few times. Kimber Lee is a former staple of AEW. So there are Chicago fans that feel very passionately about both of them. So let's give them the clash of those two idols, and in a match that's going to be incredible.
We will start with the lady of Tru Heel Heat. Who you got? Thunder Rosa versus Kimber Lee.
Thunder Rosa.
One for Thunder Rosa. StatKing.
La mera. Thunder Rosa.
I think it's going to be a clean sweep here. Thunder Rosa showed out. Like I said, I gave her the MVP of All Out. Co-MVP with Shida. So I think she's going to be one of the MVPs at Stadium Series Night 1. And as usual, this one is bound to blow the roof, if there was a roof, on this stadium. The Rascals, once again, in trios action versus the Bay Injustice, I will call them, as it's going to be Myron Reed teaming up with his usual partner, Jordan Oliver, and with Impact Wrestling's own, the former X Division champion, Chris Bay. This one, I gotta hand it to you, Steve. This is some of the most athletic guys possible, and I didn't know how you could top that athletic dream match that was that trios match with the Rascals, ZAYNE, Carter, and Trey Lamar at the last event. But this one is just so much personalities in here with the Rascals. Chris Bay is just a bountiful of charisma, and it's gonna be Saturday, by the way, if you didn't know. It's going to be Saturday, so he's got the advantage on this one with the Injustice. How did you come together with this one?
We, as you alluded to earlier, the Rascals are friends of ours here at Warrior, and not only great stars of the show, but great guys. And when we talk with them, we often talk with our mainstays about who do you want to work with? Who's somebody that's out there that you say, I really want to work with these people. And so for the Rascals, we always ask them, what's next, guys? What do you want to do? And this came out of us throwing a lot of names back and forth with the Rascals. And when this combination came together, everybody's eyes lit up. I mean, everybody said, yes, this is the next step for the Rascals. So I think a big key to our secret sauce is not that we're brilliant, but rather that we just ask the great wrestlers, hey, who do you want to have a great wrestling match with? and then we get out of the way.
That's also very smart. That's very smart on your part for doing that. StatKing, who you got in this one? The Rascals versus Bay Injustice.
Speaking of getting out of the way, as somebody who saw last month's six-man match, getting out of the way is something that some people may need to do because this match is going to fly all over the place. And I will take the Rascals in this one.
Who do you got? Chris Bay, Myron Reed, and Jordan Oliver versus the Rascals, Krssi.
Chris Bay, Jordan Reed, and what was the last name?
Myron Reed and Jordan Oliver.
Yes, I have them as my picks.
She's got Bay Injustice, so I'm going to break the tie here and go with the Rascals. The Rascals is just going to force Steve. They're going to put a blunt or a treehouse to Steve's head on making a trios title for Warrior Wrestling in due time. This one is another dream match, in my opinion, as you're going to have another one, another two guys from Impact Wrestling. TJP going one-on-one with Alex Shelley. Alex Shelley making his return to Warrior Wrestling. Steve, how does it feel to have such a legend of the independent wrestling world coming back to you guys?
You know, Shelley is another one of those guys that we had the great luck to work with for the first time at Warrior Wrestling 6, and then we all just hit it off. Loved talking to him, loved talking wrestling with him. He stole the show on our most stacked show ever, Warrior 6, against Austin Aries, in only his third match back out of retirement. And so that just started a friendship. We liked the guy, and now we worked with him again at Warrior 8, and talked to him about some matches for this series. And again, he throws out some names, we throw out some names, we talk, and TJP and Gresham were the top two names on his list. He and TJP had one match 15 years ago in PWG. And since then, they have not locked horns. So here we go, the rematch. And these guys are now 15 years better. Alex Shelley and TJP are 15 years better than when they met in PWG. So I have very high expectations for this match, and they may not be high enough.
Yes, you got to put this out of the stadium into the sky over there in Chicago Heights. I'm going to go in this one with Alex Shelley making a great return. We got to shout out our good friend Justin Clapper of Wrestling Travel, who said Alex Shelley versus Austin Aries was the best match he ever saw at Warrior. Krssi, who you got in this one, Shelley versus TJP?
I got Mr. Shelley. I love a person that can have a girl, and unisex name. Sexy. Shelley.
Who do you got, StatKing?
I'm going to go with Alex Shelley as well. This is a clean sweep for Mr. Shelley.
All right, this one was a little bit of a change to it, as it was going to be Brian Cage versus Alex Zayne in a great mashup of styles, but I believe we have a change to this, right, Steve?
That is correct. We are flipping Brian Cage's two matches in the Stadium Series. Alex Zayne has a hip injury that he's still nursing, so Zayne will return on 9/26 to face Brian Cage. This Saturday, Brian Cage faces the red-hot Benjamin Carter.
And he is red hot because he's appeared with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was on this week's AEW Dark against Ricky Starks in what Uncle Dave Meltzer said the greatest AEW tryout match that anyone has ever seen. So Benjamin Carter is hot. If you haven't seen him before, check out Friday Night Lights on FITE TV right now before you even get Stadium Series. Check out that and see what he delivered in that 6-man tag team match against the Rascals, because this guy delivers. That was my first time watching him, and I gotta say, ever since then, he's been blowing it up wherever he goes. So Brian Cage versus Ben Carter. Who do you got, Krssi? I think you're muted.
I'm so sorry. Ben Carter.
You got Ben Carter on the upset against the Machine. So I'm gonna go. Even though he's red hot, I'm gonna go with the Machine, Brian Cage. Brian Cage got the victory at Warrior Wrestling Friday Night Lights, and I think he's on his way to a big time matchup with Brian Pillman Jr. for the Warrior Wrestling Championship. So I think he's gonna get the more momentum in this one. Who you got, StatKing?
You know, you got the FTW champion, and I don't wanna step on Taz's territory, but who better? Who's better than the Machine, Brian Cage? Nobody. So you gotta go with Brian Cage.
And this one right here may be one of the best main events I've seen from Warrior Wrestling, and that's saying a lot with the main events you guys deliver. But this one is a dream match, in my opinion, as she is going to make her return to professional wrestling for the first time since March. A woman that has been mirrored in controversy in 2020, but she was the first ever female Impact World Champion. She is the current Warrior Wrestling Women's Champion. I just did an article on her for Sportskeeda for making her return to professional wrestling. It is the one, the only, the Diamond. Tessa Blanchard will defend the Warrior Wrestling Women's Championship against Smiley Kylie Rae. Kylie Rae, a mainstay, a living legend in Chicago, Illinois, versus Tessa Blanchard. These are two of the very best female wrestlers in the business. Steve, talk about this one. I know Kylie Rae earned this opportunity defeating Ray Lynn at Friday Night Lights, but this one is just huge. 2 years in the making.
Yes, and so our journey into wrestling began at Warrior Wrestling 1 in May of 2018. Tessa Blanchard semi-main evented that show in a victory over Santana Garrett. Kylie Rae was supposed to debut at Warrior Wrestling 2, but she was injured, and so she debuted at Warrior 3. At Warrior 5, Tessa won the belt. And so it has been a 2-year journey from Tessa Blanchard's debut, solidifying women's wrestling at the first Warrior Wrestling show, to Kylie Rae and her journey towards that title. Kylie was in the War of Attrition match at Warrior Wrestling 8 on the opposite initial team. Her team was eliminated. Kylie was never pinned or eliminated, and Kylie had very, very limited contact with Tessa Blanchard. And so now Kylie then had to win another match and earn her way back to get to Tessa. These two are, if I were to rank 100% honest, taking off my promoter hat and putting on my wrestling fan hat for a moment, if I were to rank the 10 best, most complete, well-rounded professional wrestlers in the world, regardless of gender, promotion, size, class, etc., Tessa Blanchard and Kylie Rae are in my top 10. As far as athleticism, quality of matches, ability in the ring, character, who they are as a person, their presence in the ring, they are stars. There is something, and everybody saw it when Kylie Rae debuted at All Out in her brief Double or Nothing, with her brief stay with AEW. She simply was a level above everybody else. Tessa Blanchard, and you mentioned Uncle Dave Meltzer a few times. Dave has said this, and I agree with it fully. The closest thing to Tessa Blanchard is Tomohiro Ishii or Kota Ibushi. I mean, she just is. When she hits, she hits. When she bumps, she bumps. There is nothing of Tessa Blanchard that looks like a performance. She just is. She's in a fight. And so you have, I believe, two of the top 10 in the world to do this, clashing most likely for the last time in the main event that we've been building to for 2 years in Warrior Wrestling. As a promoter, as a booker, as a fan, and if I may be so bold, as a friend, I am really excited for this main event.
I'm very much excited. This is like the main draw, and this is a great position for women's wrestling, being in the main event. We will start with the lady of Tru Heel Heat. Who you got, Kylie Rae or Tessa Blanchard?
I am going to go with Miss Kylie Rae. The smiling face herself. See?
Kylie Rae getting the victory and becoming the new Warrior Wrestling Women's Champion. I don't even know if I should ask StatKing because he is terribly biased, but I will ask you anyway. Who do you got, Kylie Rae or Tessa Blanchard?
So in the ISAIAS versus DAGA match, despite the fact that DAGA is defending the AAA championship, I still picked Izzy. However, I will be staying true to my roots and being the homer that I am and picking Kylie Rae to win this match. She is an incredible performer. I've had the luxury of being able to see her live a few times, and she's number one contender in Impact, and she's just everywhere she goes, she shows out and she puts on a performance that you always remember. So I'm taking Kylie Rae.
Yes, I am going to make it unanimous on this one. I agree with everything Steve said about Tessa Blanchard. Tessa Blanchard just is more intense and hits harder than most male wrestlers, let alone female wrestlers. And there's a reason why she became the first ever woman to win the Impact World Championship, because she could compete with every single male in that company, and that's the reasons why they got behind her and made her the champion. But I'm going to go with Kylie Rae. Kylie Rae has been building to this moment. I think that she is a mainstay for the Chicago area, and putting that stamp on it and winning the Warrior Wrestling Women's Championship is just going to be a big notch in her hat, and I think she gets it this Saturday at Stadium Series Night 1. Before we close things out with our outro, Steve, tell us a little bit about Night 2 and Night 3 for Warrior Wrestling Stadium Series.
Sure. So as I alluded to earlier, we've got Shelley versus Gresham coming up, the Warrior Wrestling debut of Luchasaurus and Tay Conti. We've got Brian Pillman returning to defend the title against either Janela or Warhorse. We've got Cage versus Zayne, Archer versus Rhino, The North versus Top Flight, quite a bit more, Moose versus Suicide, Mike Bennett versus Cheeseburger, Jordan Grace returns versus Kimberly. It is just going to be banger after banger after banger. So if you love wrestling, consider coming out to one or all of these shows, because it's going to be a September to remember for Warrior Wrestling. And then after that, we're packing it up and we're done for the winter. So you will not be able to see Warrior Wrestling until at least April or May of next spring. So if you want to just build up like a squirrel hoarding acorns, get all of your wrestling now before the snow hits.
Such 3 huge shows. There's a bundle deal. If you're not able to go out into the Chicago, Illinois area to see any of these 3 big shows, FITE TV is your main source. FITE TV has a bundle package where you can get all 3 shows for a very generous discounted price. So go out your way, go to FITE TV and check out how you guys can see Warrior Wrestling Stadium Series, because Steve is putting on some of the best independent shows throughout the entire world. So we thank Steve for joining us on Tru Heel Heat 91. Our outro and our plug for our lineup here. Yes, give it up for Steve for sure. Our plug for our lineup on our YouTube channel, our pay-per-view roundtable, as we mentioned before, for AEW All Out is currently up. You can see brand new editions of J News Japan, True Rewind, and the August edition of Joints and Jabronis are all up right now on our YouTube channel. A brand new AE recap, as well as our good friend here, StatKing with Dark Power, will be up this weekend. And of course, Steve, tell them where they can find Warrior Wrestling on social media, and one more plug for the Stadium Series.
You've got it. So our website is warriorwrestling.net. All of the information is up there, plus all of our safety protocols, rain delay, God forbid that should happen. All that info is up on warriorwrestling.net, and you can get the tickets there as well. On socials, Instagram and Twitter, we're at Warrior Wrestling, no vowels in wrestling, so WRSTLNG. We're on Facebook as well. Like us, follow us, and most importantly, come see a great show. As you've said, if you can't be there in person, check it out in FITE TV, but I guarantee you, you do not want to miss these shows.
I'm not gonna miss it. I'm doing all the places, doing the FITE codes. You guys who don't have FITE TV, follow a whole bunch of different places. Wrestling Travel, our good friends, they are giving you opportunities to get FITE codes to check it out. If you're not in the Chicago, Illinois area, StatKing, I will suggest you make your way to one of those shows. I know you enjoyed Friday Night Lights, so make sure you go out your way to go to one of those nights. But StatKing, tell them where they can find you on Dark Power and anything else where they can follow you on.
I was just going to say, watch me on Dark Power. I'm not really that active on social media, so I'm sorry there, guys. But I will say that we wanted to go to the show on Saturday. We have my girlfriend's friend's birthday is that we're doing something on that Saturday. And when I told her the lineup last night, there was a moment where she thought that she won't admit to it, but there was a moment where she was
come up with an excuse so she doesn't have to go.
She's like Kylie Rae's my favorite female wrestler, and I really like Thunder Rosa. Like, I love her. She's just like, there's that moment, and I was like, ah. So guys, like, you're not gonna want to miss this. We are definitely gonna be watching on FITE TV. We're gonna have to order a replay, but we will find a way to make sure that we support Warrior Wrestling and watch this show. I encourage all of you guys to do that as well.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you, Miss Krssi Luv. Where can they find you on social media?
You can find me, this is Miss Krssi Luv or Krssi Luv _. That is my Facebook. No, that is my IG and my Twitter. Also, you can find me on Facebook underneath my regular name. It's Crystal Lynch. Blessings to all of you guys. So, yeah.
Absolutely, and you can follow the Tru Heels. The Tru Heels group page is up on Facebook. Tru Heel Heat. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Battle Club Pro is one of our other partners. You can follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well as Wrestling Travel, our good friends at Uncanny Attractions. They got a great show that's up. Their whole cinematic show is up on IWTV, so check them out as well. You can check out on YouTube. Battle Club Pro is up on there. Krssi Luv's favorite YouTube channel, My Battery is Dying, of Marcus Cash, is up on there. He's reviewing Monday Night Raw as well as F4 Family. Jimmy Macaram, I am on his YouTube channel reviewing Umbrella Academy and Ozark. Unfortunately, not Power, because he's not a good fan of that anymore.
No way! It's not that bad. You gotta give it another chance.
I told them that, but no, they won't give it a chance. Alex McCarthy, Tom Conahue, you can follow them and subscribe to their YouTube channels as well. And you can listen to Tru Heel Heat on iTunes, SoundCloud, Anchor, Spotify, wherever you listen to your favorite audio podcast platform. So, for our very special guest, Steve Tortorello of Warrior Wrestling, thank you very much for joining us, good sir.
Thank you guys for having me. It was an honor and a pleasure, and anytime you want me back, I'm here.
Absolutely. We are definitely going to have you back on. You are a great guest. For our fill-in for Top Guy JJ, StatKing, thank you for joining us once again, sir.
Absolutely. Anytime.
For the beautiful, the lovely Miss Krssi Luv.
Hey, guys. Love you guys.
Until Tru Heel Heat 92 next week, it is me, your Tru Heel Phenom SP3. We are signing off until next time.